The Bad Batch just finished its 15-week and 16-episode run today, and that means it's time for a ranking. Maybe not for you, but for most of us, the season varies in quality. Some weeks there was unanimous hype amongst the fans. Some weeks the Batch just went on some mission, collecting some money, going home, eat, sleep, batch, repeat. You know what I'm saying? And it makes it the perfect show to do a quick ranking for. 16 episodes is a lot, so don't expect any in-depth thoughts. You can check out the playlist with all my in-depth individual episode thoughts. So less talking, more ranking. Hi fellow Disney Plus watchers, this is Thoughts After a Disney Plus Watch, where we review everything new Disney Plus coming out, and I'm glad you are watching. This is the channel that's specifically about movies, shows, and all that's Disney Plus original stuff. So just fair warning here before we start, yeah, you probably know what I'm going to say. Spoilers ahead for all of Star Wars The Bad Batch. So you can press that watch later button if you haven't made it to episode 16 yet. Still here? Okay, cool. Number 16, episode 13, Infested. Infested, but not invested. This is a weird one. I don't care that it is essentially completely filler. You need to have some more inconsequential episodes to have the major impact episodes have, you know, major impact. Now, the problem here with episode 13 is that there's a threat introduced at the beginning, this guy Roland, but it silently switched to the Pikes being the antagonistic threat after all at the end. The whole setup and end goal are changed in such a weird way, like the writers going on a lunch break and forgetting what they're writing about in the first place, and the group being really loyal to Sid, unjustifiably so. Weird episode, and it ages very poorly. Let's move on to number 15, episode 11, Devil's Deal. This is probably my most controversial pick. It's hard to explain in such a short time window, but my feelings on it basically come down to this. This episode had a lot of dull and awkward moments to me, and it doesn't help I didn't know or remembered Hera had an accent when she was little. The final action sequence was dull. The Syndulla family wasn't that interesting here. They did become more interesting in episode 12, but we'll get to that one. This episode didn't click with me at all, despite being pretty important. I do want to elaborate more, but I also want to move on. I'm probably getting dislikes for this one. Okay, next up, number 14, episode 4, Cornered. This episode is one of the more forgettable episodes that fall in the category eat, sleep, batch, repeat, despite having a major role for Fennec Shand, who is a big deal in the Star Wars live action shows right now. It's fine. I can't remember having any particular character development for any of the members of the group or Omega, but what I liked about it was the big chase at the end, and in general, the world of Pantora looks really cool and colorful. Then we have number 13, episode 6, Decommissioned. This is the episode where I fell in love with Omega's crossbow. Love the setting, this industrial facility. Also really dig the action set piece from this episode. And again, Omega's crossbow elevates any shootout within this show, and she doesn't use it that much throughout the show, so here she does. Trace and Rafa are really unnecessary. Well, within the plot, they're not, but I think I would have liked it better if they were swapped with new characters. Never shrink the Star Wars universe if the characters aren't worth it. The next one on the list is number 12, episode 5, Rampage. The episode where we first visit Ord Mantell. The setting of this whole episode is really cool, and I would even say iconic. There isn't too much going for this episode, but it managed to entertain me quite a bit. It reminds me of both the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. You know, the desert setting and the Rancor are giving me original trilogy feels, and the look and feel of the Slaver people are giving me, obviously, the Clone Wars vibes again. This one's pretty cool because it has the world building going for it. Moving on to number 11, episode 2, Cut and Run. This episode contains some interesting commentary on how the Empire treats people as numbers, how a system can enslave people with clearance codes, monitoring civilians, stuff like that. Also enjoyed the plot here where the Batch are helping some fellow clones get off the planet, escaping the tight grip of the Empire, basically a fugitive story. It also gave me more reason to care for Omega, and it was the first episode that wasn't Bad Batch the establishing movie. We're in the top 10 now. Episode 16, Kamino Lost. This is not the season finale, it's the season's epilogue. If we look at it like that, I think it's pretty great. Omega and Crosshair returning favors, saving each other's lives, and the bond that's starting to grow between them, all very interesting. AZ sacrificing himself. He should have died, I think, to give the episode a little more weight. Now everybody makes it out alive. But okay, this episode got a great disaster movie feel to it, and it's pretty tense in places. Kamino getting destroyed is still something that touches me greatly. A good episode, not anything amazing, but a good epilogue. Next up is number 9, episode 9, Bounty Lost. I love Cad Bane. Just because he's menacing, iconic, is part of a few great Clone Wars arcs, and he returns in a fun episode. There's lots of Western influences here. Fennec Shand returns and has other plans for Omega, and we're kinda rooting for Fennec here, even though she was an antagonist in episode 4, so that gives the episode a nice spin. Omega is really in danger in this episode, the stakes are high, and the episode was a nice break from regular Bad Batch themed episodes. Then we have on the number 8 spot, episode 10, Common Ground. Breaking out a former separatist, that is kinda interesting. What that does within within the Bad Batch group is more important for the development of this show than you may realize. It's perfect that the Batch come across these moral dilemmas. It's exactly what they need to find their path within this galaxy, and the action set pieces with all the Republic walkers and shootouts, it is one of the best action set pieces within this show, hands down. It might be my favorite Eat, Sleep, Batch, Repeat episode. Next up is number 7, episode 7, Battle Scars. The inevitable snapping of Wrecker's inhibitor ship. It feels ages ago, because this is such a long-running series, but man, it still made such an impact. Now, not as big of an impact some others are coming up, but Wrecker almost killing Omega is pretty dark. The world of Braca is pretty beautiful looking. We see Rex for the first time in this show, which is kind of special, and overall this episode is just nerve-wracking. Nerve-wracking, get it? Yeah, my humor is in pretty bad taste, so please don't subscribe me, and that's reverse psychology. Let's see if it works. The number 6 spot is episode 1, Aftermath, the long one. This episode does have the advantage of being very long. It can do a lot at once, but I try to rank it without considering the length, and still it ends up pretty high up my list. It's perfect for establishing the good soldiers follow orders dilemma. Crosshair as a villain, the whole Kamino situation, it lays the groundwork and takes its time to do it. Oh yeah, right, I was not going to consider the length. Well, it's good, okay? A great pilot. We're in the top 5 now, and my number 5 is episode 3, Replacements. The only episode I couldn't do a review for when it premiered. I love this episode as it delves into Crosshair as a character, and it's absolutely shocking what he does to his men, killing them in cold blood after doubting his orders. So this episode also raises the stakes and perfectly establishes the danger the Bad Batch will be in later on in the season. The other story we followed is of course the Bad Batch stranded on this moon, and it's less interesting, I know, but still managed to entertain me. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing what this episode did for Crosshair. Okay, let's move on to number 4, episode 12, Rescue on Ryloth. What a way to redeem that dull episode 11 Devil's Deal. And I know, I'm getting dislikes for that. It's how it works. But okay, let's focus in on episode 12. It contains one of the biggest, most consequential moments for clones in both the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch combined. Clones laying down their weapons despite their inhibitor chips, overruling the programming that is, as far as we know, still intact. So it is a beautiful message that freedom spirit and, you know, doing what's right is stronger than this programming of these chips. Or did something get turned off? I don't know. But it's such a big moment. But it's a great episode, full of stakes. Hauser's awesome and represents the change of heart within most clones post-Republic era. We're starting to move into the top 3. We're very close. And this one's episode 14, War Mantle. This is the episode to point people to when they ask, why is the Bad Batch important for the Star Wars universe? Why do we need it? This episode perfectly shows what the transition looks like, from clone troopers to stormtroopers. Gregor is awesome. He gives a little bit of insight to better understand what is happening. It has great action that is actually nostalgic. The sound effects are so original trilogy. I love that this show is marrying the prequels and the originals in such a great way, and this was just one of these episodes that makes that happen so effectively. My number 2 spot is for episode 8, Reunion. Visually stunning, one of the most cinematic looking episodes, pretty emotional, finally seeing Crosshair face to face with the group, as well as seeing Hunter shot, Omega captured. This episode does so much. There's also interesting camera work as we see Hunter's perspective when he's nearly passed out. Stuff within this huge ion cannon looked really good. The whole atmosphere of this episode is moody and grim, great stuff. And we first meet Cad Bane within this series, and that's always a plus. And there we have it, episode 15, Return to Kamino, the season finale. That is my number 1. What hasn't been said about this episode? The empty, evacuated halls of Kamino, goosebumps. The twist regarding Crosshair, where his victim role is being changed to an active role, as we finally learn he removed the chip a long time ago, goosebumps, because Crosshair's not the same again. The Kamino themed soundtrack popping up in the episode, goosebumps. All the Venator Star Destroyers destroying Kamino, goosebumps. Omega's new wet from the rain haircut, goosebumps. Yeah, I don't know why I get worked up seeing that haircut. Yeah, such an impactful end of Kamino era episode. I'm stoked and excited for season 2. I'm really going to miss watching this weekly and talking about it with all of you. It has been a great 15-week adventure. I'm thinking about wrapping this up. Thank you so much for watching. I'm curious, what did you think of this show altogether, and how would you rank these bad boys? Be sure to let me know in the comment section. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the idea of discussing Disney Plus content with us, that red button looks familiar, right? And if you're interested in thoughts on all the episodes, it's all in the description, or you can browse the channel page. Did you like this video? Then be sure to consider giving that a click. Thanks. For now, have a wonderful day and see ya.